Okay, so now we're gonna sew the buttonhole line. The button in the front is, as I marked, is 5 centimeter, but you can make it bigger if you want, but you have to do it on the pattern. So now for beginner, you can always mark pin and mark the pin. You fold first 1 centimeter and then 1.5 centimeter like that, and then start sewing. If ironing or pin, using pin helpful, you are welcome to doing that. You do similar things for the other side of the front, and then you will sew the dart together. So for the dart, I already have the video how to sew that properly, but technically you fold them in the middle like this. Start from the bottom of the dart, reverse, and then slightly go to the meeting point. Once you get the meeting point, just keep coming out without reverse the thread. So the tangle of the thread will replace the reverse, and when you cut, you will leave the tail a little bit like that. You do similar for the front and the back. At the back, in this case, I cut it in half instead of leave them a completed piece because I want to do the zipper at the back. So in this case, I have to do the dart slightly a little bit smaller. It's like here 3 centimeter. I can do like total 1 centimeter or 1.5 only, to make sure that I have enough space for the zipper. So now you have the front after you sew the buttonhole and the dart here together. You will matching the front of the top with the front of the pants, and you will see here is a lot wider on the side here. So your job now is matching them together. So you technically have to have a pleat that make sure that they end up matching together. Remember, you also have 1 centimeter here spare. 1 centimeter spare. It's hard to see. Let me zoom on in the way that you can see easier. Okay, here. So this is the front and this is a pants. 1 centimeter to connect 2 pieces of the front. So later this part have to be matching. So this is how much is longer. So this is the pleat you're gonna fold, matching them, and then fold the pleats here down like that, and you sew on top to stick them together. So in the front we'll have a pleat like that. It will make it look really nice and elegant. You sew on top to make sure this matching. So you fold the pleat and then sew on top to attach them together. You do similar for the other side. Okay, we have a 2 piece for the front and the back. 2 piece of front and the front of the pant. Sorry, like that. And later when we connect these two together, and this gonna be sewn together. I also already sewed the dart at the back. I make it pretty smaller than what I was planned before because I was decided to put the zipper on. So instead of the dart here I sew 3, I only sew 1 centimeter, so it's very tiny, small dart, to create the shape and make the nice figure. I will put the back on top. The back here is we'll have the dart also around the butt area. So remember you have to matching them here again together. So you will need to make sure that the waist around the back We'll matching the waist around the front, so the dart gonna be here from this distance, this much. So I can mark it again, and this can be around 4 centimeter. Why? Because this we make the dart here a little bit smaller. Actually, this is around 4 centimeter. So even when you spare on the pattern, it's also good to check. Like to check after you sew on fabric to make sure that everything matching, and you will not have any problem sewing. So like this, and I will mark the dart area here and here, and how deep that I can decide by myself. So here I can do the dart around 14 centimeter, and I will do similar for the other part. I sew the dart at the pants at the back. This is the front of the pants, and we're gonna sew with the front of the top. You join them together here. But I'm sorry, we will need to sew the pants together first before you connect with the top part. So now, first I want to sew one line, attach the button line together. So this is the top, and I want to attach them together here, because you remember the button area need to overlap each other. So I'm gonna sew a tiny bit here at the bottom to attach them together. So this is the front of the pants, and I'm gonna put the back on top to sew the side together. I'm gonna sew the side here together, and the inseam here together, both of them. After you sew the side of the pants and the inseam together, you have a two piece like that. You need to turn one inside out and put it in the other one. Put it inside and sew the cross together. Remember, you only sew the cross part of the front because the back is gonna be with the zipper. So I will explain again. So this is the front, the cross for the front. So you want to sew from here 1 centimeter all the way toward the center, and cross the center around 5 centimeter only. So the zipper, I'm going to spare this much distance for the zipper. You can even sew it a little bit more if you feel like the zipper, you don't want the zipper to be so long. So maybe I will sew like 10 centimeter across the center point here. So the other rest here will be attached with the back of the top for the zipper. Okay, so now this is a cross for the front, and remember we already marked how much we're gonna sew. 1 centimeter. Cross the center here. And here I can sew like 10 or even 12 or 15 centimeter more. So you will ask me why 10, why 12, why 15? It really depends how much you want for the zipper go under your pants, and how much is enough for you to put it on your body. So I feel like this mask is breaking around the butt. Remember the distance between the waist to the bust is 20. So I think as long as you don't cross the bust line, it is okay. So I know the pattern making is hard, but if you have any questions, just drop on the comment and I will answer it. And remember, the front part gonna be sewed. The front part gonna be sewed with the top part of the front. So you need to make sure that you have enough, they matching. Like this is the top part of the front, and then later you're gonna mask everything with the top part. So make sure that this wanna be matching with the top part. So now we're gonna work on the top. First, sew the shoulder together. So this is the back, and another piece of the back, and the front. So you're gonna sew the shoulder here together. You can pin and sew 1 centimeter along. Of course, I don't need to pin, but I just want to make the video a little bit more pretty. So when you pin, you remember matching the neckline is more important. For here, we can cut out the part that is extra. We can cut it so make it even. And after sewing the shoulder together, I'm gonna work on the sleeve part. Similar for this. You sew the shoulder together. And the other shoulder together. It's okay if you start to sew the sleeve together. The side together, and sew the sleeve after, because how to say it? Because is this correct? I think I sewed the wrong part. Okay, after I sewed the shoulder together here, I have the front and the back together like this. And now I'm gonna start cutting the sleeve. First, I will need to measure how long the curve here. And I will need to decide if I want to do normal sleeve or puff sleeve. Of course, I have a video of how to make the sleeve, but I can always show you in this video. It's 38 centimeter. So the curve is 38 centimeter. I will add 2 pieces for the sleeve. This is the length of the sleeve I want. I fold them in half. Remember the number 38. If you divide by 2, it's 19. So now I will draw the curve that is 19 centimeter. So later I open, I have a 38 centimeter curvy, and I will attach it with the body. So now, how to draw the sleeve? So first you have this piece, and then we will have this is the width of the sleeve I want is like 40 centimeter for the width. So I fold them in half, and this is 20. So why 40? Because my upper arm is 26. So I want it to be comfortable. Of course, I don't need this big, but I want to do a little bit of puff sleeve, so I can do it like 20. So if I find a spot from this point I call it A. If I find a spot on this, how the distance is 19, it's gonna be like very narrow on this distance. So actually I will do the sleeve a little bit smaller, or the sleeve width has to be a little bit smaller. For example, in this case, this marks only like around 32 centimeter is good. So now I will find a spot that is 90 centimeter from this point, 90. So this angle seems like more normal for the sleeve, it will be more normal. So if you don't do puff sleeve, I recommend you cut the sleeve like as wide as you need. Shouldn't be make it too big. So in this case, I will do a little bit of puff sleeve. So I will keep it 20 centimeter. So will have around 3 centimeter here, 3 centimeter for the puffy part, and I will start from this point. This is A. I will find a point on this. How the distance between them gonna be 19 centimeter. 19 centimeter. Sometimes you can minus 1 is 18 centimeter. Why? Because later we're gonna draw a curvy part here, and when it will draw it curvy, it will increase back from 18 to 19. So for me, I will choose maybe 18 centimeter, so a little bit higher. I divide in this part into 3 equal parts. This point I mark it up by 2 centimeter, and I connect to the point here, connect to this, and connect to back to this point. And from this, you just drive it a little bit curl down like that, maximum like 1 or half centimeter. So now you have the sleeve curve as the way you want it. You will cut it and copy for another one. So what I mean is, if you don't do puff sleeve, you're gonna start cutting from there, and this is the shape of the sleeve you have if it's not puff sleeve. But because I want it to be have puffy a little bit, so I will increase it a little bit here, 3 centimeter from the center, and I will draw everything normal again. And this curve gonna be 19 and total gonna be 28 to attach with the middle part. And then I will cut one more piece and sew the sleeve together. First, I'm gonna hem the bottom of the sleeve. Because this is quite wide sleeve, so you can actually put the elastic at the bottom here. If you create a tunnel and then insert the elastic in, but I just want it to be comfortable, so I will just fold them twice, and then I sew on top. I will do it from the outside here. You always welcome to iron or pin if it makes it easier. In this case, I just hold it by hand, but because I also use this. And you do similar for the other sleeve. And now you will attach this to the sleeve part. So the body of the dress here, you have the curve part like this, and you will facing the sleeve front to the front. You can start joining from the beginning of one part, 1 centimeter. And like that here, you can stop because this is where the puffy part. You can stop, and now you can connect it to the other end to make sure that you know how much for the puffy. So you can flip it around, matching the end here together, matching the end, and start to sew from here. So by doing that, you will know how much you have for the puffy part. So you won't don't overdo it. So this is the sleeve, and this is the part for the puff. You can hold the middle of the puff here, matching with the middle of the shoulder, and then use your hand to spread it to hold the fold together. How at the end they matching each other. So this is not difficult, but you have to do it like so they matching nicely. It's good because we want the puffy part focus on the middle of the shoulder or evenly on both sides. You know, you run over the pleat, you run over the ruffle, and here too. You can slightly adjust and hold the ruffle around the middle of the shoulder, matching them together, and run over it here back to this point like that. So at the end, you will have the sleeve attached like that together. You will do similar for the other sleeve. Okay, so after sewing the sleeve together, you're gonna join the side together and start sewing from the sleeve to the middle point and all the way to the side bottom. And do similar for the other part. So now we have the front part and we have the pants. Here is a pant. This is a zipper on the back cross. So now you're gonna join the waist together from there and sew straight to this part, matching them together. You can adjust all the seam or the dart on the pleats if they're not matching, and you sew them together. So this waist part together. You join the waist together. So in case at the waist here, sometimes some difference. You can always sew the seam deeper if they bigger, or let it out, or fold more bigger pleat to make sure they all matching nicely. Of course, if we do it correctly, they will always matching. But sometimes, if we're doing it not really precisely, there will be some difference, and there we will need to check and adjust. So now I need to cut the bias binding 45-degree angle for the border of the neck. Since I don't have enough fabric, so I need to cut some pieces and connect them together. You will watch this in the video how to sew the bias binding. To connect them together, you face them in square angle and start to sew from left top here to the bottom right here. And you have a complete piece together like that. Now we will start to sew it with the neck curve. So because it's stretchy fabric, 45 degrees more stretchy, it will wrap around the curve better. You sew 1 centimeter all the way along. During the process, you have to pull the strap center, matching with the curve. You don't pull the body of the dress, you will pull the strap only. At the end here, you can fold since we don't need that much, you can fold the strap under, wrapping around the dress like that. Why we fold it under like this? Because when we open it up, it will wrap around like that. And now you will fold them. You can sew on top like this one time to make sure it's clean. Sew on top, facing all the edges here to the inside part, and sew top stitch very close to the edges. And then you will fold them along with the seam, and then fold everything down. We'll do similar for the other side. After you sew the binding for the neckline, you have the front and the back together like that. So now it's time to sew the zipper and maybe a waistband, a strap for the band. So now this is the part for the zipper. You will need to sew the zipper long enough and then turn it inside out and sew them together first. You still sew them together to iron to get the creases, and then turn it and then open it out later. So now we want to sew like 1 or 2 centimeters straight all the way down. So you join them together and still sew them together. Even later you open it out. You don't reverse here because later you're gonna open it out anyway. You check if this matching nicely. Until here, where the reverse tab, you can reverse a little bit. So later, you know that you're gonna open from here and pick until the top. You go to the iron and iron the seam here to get the creases. We're gonna sew only the angle of the zipper to the hem. In this foot can be the one that will hold to the zipper, maybe like this one. But at the end later we gonna change again another time. For example, this one, I still can use this foot because I don't need to sew close on this time. This seam is only to attach the zipper to the hem border. So we can actually no need to change the foot, but later we're gonna officially sew the zipper to the angle here. So be careful not cut the dress, only the angle. And align them with the middle. Sew until the reverse here, but you can sew more if you want also. So we already fixed one angle of the zipper. You can also do this step by hand, however I find when you do it by machine it's much faster and more convenient. Be careful not cut the dress. And not hit the knot of the zipper. After finish, you can start unpick the seam in the middle using the seam ripper. Here, you can open from the top in the middle line here. So the zipper is being fixed to the seam, the allowance of the zipper area only. And we open this, we open until where we have the reverse here. So we can unpick from the top here until the top part. Here until the top part up. Okay, after you unpick them, you can clean the extra thread, the leftover thread. Make sure it's clean. Cut them out. And then you can open the zipper now. So to sew the zipper, you will need to change the foot. The foot gonna be the one that have the left and right tunnel here. I think depend on the machine, it will be a little bit different. However, the function and the way to use it is the same. You screw it, the foot into the machine. And now I'm gonna sew the left one. So I'm gonna lift up the zipper and put it in the left tunnel. So now since I have the creases, I just follow. And also the seam here already attached, so I don't need to work so much. bottom. I lift up the zipper. I stand up the zipper so it's not caught on the dress. So it's not caught on the needle. So we can sew it without breaking the needle. You sew until you cannot sew anymore. You reverse. So now we already have the zipper attached to the dress. Like that. We change the foot back to normal foot, and then we can hide the extra part of the zipper here on the background. Fold it like that, and fold it one time more, and you can sew on top a little bit. And then you will start to hem up the pant, the bottom of the pant, and then you can, if you want, you can sew an extra belt strap for your waist. We hem up the bottom. Actually, I wish I make it a little bit longer. You're rolling the fabric like that twice. Hold them from far distance so all the ends matching. And you can pull and settle it down. And sew until it comes back to the beginning point. Here. So by doing that, you will not twisting the fabric. For the belt, of course ironing will make it easier, however I just prefer fast. So